encountered someone with barbaric words and actions to the point where you don't want to talk to them ever again? Well, if you have experienced that, this is the right TV program for you, because today we are going to talk about communication ethics. Have you ever stumbled upon the word ethics? Going back to our Philosophy 101, ethics are moral principles that govern a person's behavior or conducting of an activity. Furthermore, did you know that ethics can also be applied in communication? We have this so-called communication ethics, where it is primarily concerned with human interaction. Moreover, it refers to the moral principles that guide how people communicate with others to ensure that everyone involved in the communication process is valued and respected.
A few of us may wonder the necessity of ethical communication. And to help us understand better, here are the reasons as to why ethical communication is important. 1. Ethical communication plays a crucial role in fostering responsible thought processes and decision making. It is essential for building and nurturing our relationship and communities, both within specific contents and across the diverse cultures. Through ethical communication, we can handle and enhance our interactions and connections with others. And ultimately, it serves as a foundation for creating a more thoughtful and interconnected society.
Furthermore, ethical communication enhances human worth and dignity by fostering truthfulness, fairness, responsibility, personal integrity, and respect for self and others, as another reason as to why ethical communication is important.
In opposition to ethical communication, unethical communication threatens the quality of all communication and, consequently, the well-being of individuals and the society that we live in.
Now that we know the importance of ethical communication, let us also learn the fascinating characteristics of ethical communication.
Did you know that there are 4 characteristics of ethical communication?
Sure there are, partner. Do you want to explain to them what the first characteristic is?
Easy peasy. Let us start first with honesty. This is where ethical communication demands truthfulness. On the other hand, it means transparency, deception avoidance, and accurate presentation of information. Honesty is the foundation of trust, and without trust, communication loses its power.
Next, we have respect.
This is where ethical communication requires treating your audience with dignity and consideration. It means that we must avoid any language that is offensive, discriminatory, or disrespectful. Logically, imagine a public speaker using a derogatory language. It would alienate the audience and undermine their message. Respectful communication fosters inclusivity and understanding.
Then there's fairness.
This is where all sides of an issue are being presented fairly without prejudice. Furthermore, it means that one cannot show bias, prejudice, and manipulation. Think of a journalist who only reports one side of a story. The audience would get an incomplete picture. Fairness calls for a balanced and informed discussion. Hence, objectivity is a must rather than subjectivity.
Finally, we have responsibility.
Ethical communication likely means taking responsibility of one's words and actions, particularly at its impact. Imagine a social media influencer spreading misinformation. They would be responsible for the harm it might cause. Responsibility encourages truthful communication and a commitment to truthfulness.
These 4 characteristics, honesty, respect, fairness, and responsibility, are the pillars of ethical communication. They would guide us to communicate effectively, build strong relationships, and create a more just and equitable world.
Do you guys think we can build stronger relationships based on these characteristics? Yes, of course. Through the 4 characteristics, it gives us
us the assurance that we can try to strive to be ethical in thoughts, in words, and in deeds.
Exactly. And because of that, let us explore another topic under ethical communication.
Welcome back, everyone. Communication is something we do every day. But have you ever thought about how we do it? Today, we are going to talk about ethical communication. This means using words in a way that is honest, respectful, and responsible. In this presentation, we're going to explain what ethical communication is, why it matters, the key principles to follow, and how we can encourage others to practice it too. To keep things interesting, we're also going to share some quick activities and fun facts along the way. Let's begin. Ethical communication means sharing information in a way that is truthful and respectful. It also means thinking about how our world affects others. And being clear and honest help us build trust and understanding in all areas of life, whether at home, at work, and in our community.
Now that we know what ethical communication means, let's talk about why it's so important. It doesn't just make our relationships better, but it also helps us seen as trustworthy and reliable.
Ethical communication is important for three reasons. First, it builds trust. When we are honest and clear, people feel confident in us. Second, it helps to avoid misunderstanding, making it easier to explain ideas and solve problems. Third, it strengthens our credibility when people know we communicate with integrity. They respect and listen to us.
Here's something to think about. Would you rather have an honest disagreement or be lied to? Most people choose honesty because trust is the foundation of all good relationships.
Now that we've discussed why ethical communication is so important, let us look at the principle that helps us stay on the right path. These principles act as a guide for us to communicate with others.
There are three main principles of ethical communication. First, honesty and accuracy. This means being truthful and avoiding gossip or spreading false information. Second, respect and consideration. This means listening carefully and being kind to your words, even during disagreements. Third, accountability. This means owning up to your words and actions and fixing mistakes when needed.
Now let's move on how we can encourage others to communicate ethically. It is not just about improving ourselves, it's also about helping those around us.
To influence ethical communication, we need to start leading by example. When we are honest, clear, and respectful, others are more likely to follow. We can also create safe spaces where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas without fear of being judged. If we hear or see false information, we should kindly correct it to keep conversations respectful and accurate. Finally, we can share what we know about ethical communication through discussions or simple reminders in daily interactions.
Did you know people are more likely to communicate ethically when they see others people doing it first? So, being a good example can create a ripple effect.
As we've learned today, ethical communication is about being honest, respectful, and responsible. It helps us build trust and better relationships with others. If we follow these principles and encourage others to do the same, we can make a positive impact wherever we go.
Now we'll explore some ethical dilemmas in communication, understand their causes, and discuss ways to navigate them responsibly. But then again, ethical dilemmas arise when communicators must choose between two conflicting ethical principles, and there are some ethical dilemmas faced while communicating. Secrecy, whistleblowing, leaks, rumor and gossips, lying, euphemism, and ambiguity. Secrecy. Secrets are kept for honorable and dishonorable reasons, for may be used to guard intimacy or to invade it. Next, whistleblowing. This requires careful consideration of motivations, consequences, and potential outcomes such as revealing environmental or safety hazards.
Rumors and gossip seem to be an inevitable part of everyday corporate life. Rumors tend to focus on events and information, whereas gossip focuses on people. The information has a way of creeping into performance, evaluation, and promotion decisions, even if unintended.
Lying. From its root word, lie, is a false statement intended to deceive anyone. Of all the ethical dilemmas discussed thus far,
Lying would appear to be the least morally perplexing. Lying breaks down the trust between individuals, shaking the foundation of ethical communication.
Preceding the last, we have euphemism. This refers to the usage of less offensive expression instead of that one might cause distress. The opposite of this is dysphemism. Both euphemism and dysphemism are figures of speech. However, euphemism is a flowering or an indirect statement, while dysphemism is a direct statement, or should I say, frank and straightforward statement. For example, using the expression passed away instead of died is one of the more common examples. This usage is understandable. Nevertheless, people frequently use these terms to obscure the truth.
Lastly, ambiguity is like secrecy that can be used for ethical and unethical purposes. Language itself is made up of various words that carry values. So, by using words in certain ways, one can influence others' behaviors and expectations because all languages contain some degree of bias. Communicators at some point are held responsible for possible misinterpretation. This means that one must be aware of the probabilistic nature of communication and need to consider not only their intentions but also how their messages might be misunderstood. Building on the previous lecture's discussion on the previous topic, we'll now dive into the guidelines to handle communication ethics dilemmas. Ethical communication is essential in fostering trust, respect, and understanding in any interaction. It involves balancing honesty, accountability, and consideration for others. Let's break it down.
First, we have legal considerations. The law can often guide us in ethical dilemmas. If something's clearly illegal, like breaking confidentiality or spreading defamatory content, then it's not just unethical. It's against the law. In such cases, your responsibility is clear. Follow the law.
Next is moral consideration. Not all ethical questions are covered by the law. This is where your principles and judgment come into play. Reflect on your intent. Am I being honest? Am I misleading anyone? Even if your statement is factually correct or if your intention is to deceive, it's still unethical. The goal should always be to create the greatest good for the greatest number of people.
Now, let's talk about maintaining candor. Candor means being truthful and transparent. However, this doesn't mean revealing anything, especially in sensitive situations. For example, during negotiations, sharing too much could compromise your position.
Another important point is keeping messages accurate. When relying information, ensure it remains true to the original message. Misrepresenting or distorting facts, even unintentionally, can create misunderstandings and lead to unethical outcomes.
We also need to avoid deception. Deception includes lying, fabricating, or withholding critical information to manipulate others. These actions undermine trust and credibility. Ethical communicators prioritize honesty and transparency.
Then there's consistent behavior, or behaving consistently. Your actions must align with your words. Saying one thing but doing another is hypocritical and untrustworthy. Consistency is key to maintaining integrity.
Finally, keep confidences. When someone shares sensitive information with you, protect that trust. Sharing it without permission is a clear violation of ethics and can harm relationships.
In summary, ethical communication is about being honest, accurate, and accountable while respecting others. By following these guidelines, we can navigate dilemmas with integrity and build stronger connections. That's all for this topic. I hope everyone learned a lot from our discussion. We now have a better and deep understanding of ethical communication. It is our greatest pleasure to share these lessons with you for you to strive to be ethical in both words and actions because we hate people who are barbaric in their words and actions. Don't we? That's the end of our TV show and how to be not barbaric with group. Okay.